Now, Power Query has a very interesting background. Power Query was introduced in Microsoft Excel way back. In 2008, Power Query was introduced, but Microsoft was never quite sure how they want users to use it. So earlier it used to be, even in 2010, it was there. It used to be a part of Excel, but in a very simple form. So they kept it in beta for many, many years. In 2013, they said, you know what, it's not ready yet. So let's not give the user the option. So they took it away. And if you wanted it, you would have had to install it separately. Then in 16, they backtracked. They said, you know what, I think it's ready. So they launched the features. The name also has been changed now. So now they have changed the name from Power Query to Get and Transform Data. One of the reasons Microsoft chose to change the name from Power Query is because they felt that a lot of Excel users might feel that Power Query is very advanced and they would probably not want to get their hands dirty. That's the same reason for which Power Maps and Power Pivot is also not there on Excel by default. You will have to enable it. But now they have decided that Power Query is what is the future of Excel, because a lot of people will end up using Excel for data cleaning. And if you don't have Power Query, then an Excel user might dismiss Excel, saying that, you know what, it doesn't give me the tools that I want. For example, being able to connect to the internet, combining multiple files, reading data from a PDF, and so on and so forth. So now what they have finally decided to do is to keep Power Query as a permanent group. It's not an individual tab. So like Power Pivot is a tab that gets enabled when you go to file options and then you enable it. Power Query is in the data tab under Get and Transform Data. Way back, it used to be somewhere off center because they did not feel it was very important. But now if you notice, Power Query, which is Get and Transform, is the very first thing that they have put very boldly. And that just goes to show you how much importance they are giving to it. The only thing is that Microsoft doesn't really have a marketing channel. So it's not that they can come up with a full page ad saying that please purchase Power Query or please use Power Query. And that is what is very difficult for a company like Microsoft, because they don't really want to invest money in promoting it. If you look at Tableau, if you look at Power BI, there is promotion that happens. You see sponsored and promoted ads that happen. Excel doesn't really have it, right? Sure, sometimes the office and the student version of Excel might have a bundled promotion with hardware manufacturers. But the reason I'm telling you the entire backstory is because you don't have to use it just as a user, as an analyst. You have to understand the entire landscape to see why organizations don't work on it. The communication gap is one of the very big reasons. And organizations take years to overcome their hesitation and start learning something new. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, organizations comprise of individuals, and the different teams and different managers have their own set of working. So they have their own style, and everybody might not want to work uniformly. When a change like this happens, it takes a lot of time to take your legacy data and your legacy SOPs and convert it into a new SOP. Will the end result help them save 50% of the time? Absolutely. But will that transition be easy, moving from normal Excel files to using Power Query? Absolutely not. That is why if you think about SAP, like I've been in several organizations as a consultant where during my consulting period, they have installed SAP. Like I was working with a Vedanta company called Sterlite Power, and they were installing SAP Ariba, which is their vendor management portal. And I was very closely working with them on that. So they had Accenture who were the consultant in the middle, and Accenture was helping them transition to Ariba. You will not believe it. I mean, it was supposed to happen in December 2018, and it kept on getting delayed, and it kept on getting delayed, and it kept on getting delayed. And the funny thing is this, they spent about, okay, I should not tell you how much they spent, but it was upwards of a few crores, okay? Let's put it like that. When I spoke to the logistics, the supply chain head, he said that, Havish, from a procurement perspective, we deal with hundreds of vendors. And one of the main reasons we want to shift to SAP Ariba is because we don't want this entire hassle of a printed invoice. It will come on email, then the courier will get lost. Somebody will send a duplicate copy. They say, we want to do away with all this paperwork. And now that everything is on the system, you have an app, you can view it on your browser, and you can just see what payment has been done, what has not been done. There'll be no delays. There's a proper SOP. And here's the best part. After this entire thing happened, which invariably took a lot more time than everybody anticipated, the first invoice that I sent to them as a vendor, when I sent them my first invoice on Ariba, which was a nightmare, he called me and said, can you send me a hard copy? I said, what do you mean? You said that the entire point of shifting to Ariba was because you did not want a hard copy. They said, no, we still need a hard copy. You can do it on Ariba, but we still need a hard copy. This is how organizations work. I worked with, I did my internship with Coca-Cola. I spent 3 years with Reckitt. And I work with CXOs from multiple sectors, and I'm telling you, technology incompetence is there everywhere. And the reason is not because people aren't doing their job well. The reason is because it advances so rapidly, people don't want to invest time in learning. And that's what people don't realize. Companies feel, oh, I can just hire more analysts and get better software and get a more premium version. But they don't realize that getting a premium version in isolation doesn't work. You have to be in tandem with the other teams, with the other software. How does one software talk to the other one? That's very important. Now, another element of complexity that has come in now is robotic process automation. With RPA coming in, the jobs, especially of finance managers, is under question, because when I go to companies, they tell me, Havish, very simple one-line requirement. They say, we have 15 people in our finance, let's say FP&A team, right? So financial planning and analysis is something that mostly chartered accountants would do. Or you can even have MBA in finance doing it. And you're planning, you have your annual operating budget, and then you see what amount of that budget you've already utilized, and are you under or over budget. And they say, Havish, we have 15 people and we want to reduce this to 3 people because we don't want to pay 12 employee salaries. So if they're paying an average of, let's say, 60, 70,000, they say, we don't even want to give that extra, 8 lakhs into 12. So we don't want to give that extra 1 crore every year. We'll give you whatever amount of money, and you define the system for us in such a way that it is automated. And I have been doing these projects on VBA earlier in 2016-17, and now from 18 forward, I've shifted to Power Query. Right now, I'm working on a project for the Ministry of Power, and it's a huge project, and Ministry of Power is losing bleeding money every day. Every week, they're losing crores. Why? Because they have thousands of PDFs with them, and they don't have the capability of having people who will read those PDFs. And you know how people are, they'll just randomly pick it up and they will not read every PDF in detail. Why I'm sharing all of this with you is because the finance landscape is undergoing a massive shift. 2 reasons. One is with Power Query coming in, which is probably one of the biggest impact that people don't talk about, but it is impacting people a lot, especially at Big Fours. Once Power Query becomes the norm and people know how to use it and know how to integrate it with other ways of working, believe me, heads will roll. People are going to lose jobs because companies will realize that we can be so much more efficient by doing this on Power Query. I'll share with you, if it took me 30 hours to write a VBA code, I can literally do the same thing in 1 hour on Power Query. That is a sort of differential that we are looking at. 30 hours of difference, 30x differential. It's no joke, right? Power Query is going to have a very, very big impact going forward. It's not going to happen overnight in a year or 2 years. It's going to take time. But unlike VBA, the problem with VBA was that VBA could have changed a lot of businesses, but it was programming. And that is where a lot of companies got stuck because they did not know how to use programming. The advantage of Power Query is that they are very nicely created in a very user-friendly manner. So if you don't want to look at the formula, you don't have to. Everything is available on the click of a button. Yes, organizations will take time to learn it, but I've seen that shift happening in the last 6 to 12 months where a lot more companies now tell me, Havish, 8-hour Excel training, can you do 1 hour of Power Query? Right now, I'm working with some companies in Dubai, and the same thing, they're telling me, can you do just 10% of Power Query? And what does that show you? That shows you that they are eager. They see that their peers are using it. So this is very, very important for you guys. If you were marketing, finance, supply chain guys, I would probably not have spoken so much about this. But for a finance guy, this is your lifeblood. Excel, might be the journey, but this is, really that one walking stick that you need to have. And this will take you a lot of time to learn. Not just the fact that, oh, it's a new language, but also because how to very creatively work with it is difficult. Okay. So with that out of the way, let's do a simple example. Now, Power Query uses a language called mQuery. Is it similar to SQL? Sort of. So things, what you can do on SQL, which is merge, join, append, getting data from the internet, extracting some data, creating a duplicate query, handling large data sets, you can do all of that. Now, one limitation of Excel is that Excel is not very good with large data sets. So there is a hard limit of 1048576 rows. So you have 10,48,000 rows that can come. And there is a limit of 16,384 columns. And you can't bypass that. Also, the moment you have 1.5 lakh rows in Excel and you're doing something as simple as a VLOOKUP, it will stutter because Excel is not meant to handle large data. So Power Query uses its own algorithm. It is called, it's definitely worth a read. You should definitely have a read. It's not that this will be asked in interviews, but you should know what it is, okay? So they have something called the X Velocity in memory tabular engine. So there are two names. It's either called X Velocity or it is called Vertipack. You can Google it. You can look at the official Microsoft website. They explain everything in detail. And they talk about how Power Query manages to compress the data to a point that you laugh. If your Excel file is 5 MB, when you save it as a Power Query file, as a connection, it will become 300 KB. So you will say, how is that possible? It's the same data with more transformations and more in Excel. If you have the same data on Power Query, the same data along with some added elements will be 1/10 of the size or 1/50th of the size. So there are a lot of reasons for it. They create some dictionaries and they compress the data. They do a columnar database. You can read about all this in detail. Definitely worth a read. Again, is this something that you need to know? Not really, but I think it will help you get a better understanding of how Power Query works, right? So if you're thinking of working as a financial analyst for the rest of your life, then you really need to go that in depth and see how these things work. All right. All right. Let's do a simple example. Here I have five workbooks. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And each one of these workbooks has a small data set in it. It has data for a region and the sales amount. So I'll just show you the first one. It is called 1. The workbook is called 1. And the data is East and the values are 50 and 60. Makes sense? And the sheet is called sheet. Similarly, if I look at the second one, the second workbook is called 2. And the data is for a different region. It is for North and the numbers are 10 and 20. Just like this, there are 5 different workbooks. So what I want to do is I'll take the 5th workbook and put it outside right now. So I'll just keep 4 workbooks in that folder. Now, if I ask you combine all the 4 files one below the other. So basically you want North, South, West, East to come like this in a single column. It might seem like a very simple task, but you don't have anything on Excel that allows you to do this. Now, somebody who doesn't know VBA will say, "Arey, let's just write a VBA code." Somebody who knows how to write a VBA code knows that it's not that simple. You have to keep various factors in mind. It's not that you can just write a code in 5 minutes. It takes time. You have to define the folder, the path. You have to see which column the values are starting in. Is it the same number of rows or not? A lot of complexity. And this is the sort of an area where less knowledge is more dangerous, because the people who don't know anything about VBA, they are the ones who feel, oh, VBA can do anything. The people who know VBA know that, oh, it's not that simple. So what do? I will just copy the folder path, come back to Excel, any Excel file. And here we want to just enable my formula bar. We click on data and then we click on get data. Now here you can get data from multiple sources. So for example, I can get my data directly from Power BI. This is very cool. This was only added 1 month back. And this is how Power BI and Excel are going to be beautifully integrated. And I think this is a big upper hand that Excel has compared, Power BI has compared to Tableau. Because Tableau's integration with Excel is not that solid. On the other hand, Excel's integration with Power BI is beautifully seamless, as you can see. This was just added a month back. In the file, you can see we have workbook. text CSV, comma separated values, or text tab separated values. We have XML. XML is also very common for finance guys because in a lot of cases, most of your engineers know, so you would know this. When you have a system dump, the system dump mostly comes as an XML file. You have your JavaScript object notation. You can directly take data from a folder and from a PDF, and you can get data from a folder, which is what we want to click on. But let's just see the other options. In database, we have SQL Server, we have Access, we have Analysis Server, and we have SQL Server Analysis, what we call SSAS. Then we have Microsoft Azure, obviously. Then you have other sources which have from a table of range. That means you're taking the data from the Excel file itself, from an internal Excel file. You can get data from the internet, which means you will be looking at the HTML tables. You can, this is not important. There's something called object data connections. It's very rare that you would work with them. So you can ignore this for now. These are called ODBC files, okay? And you can also run a blank query in case you want to write a Power Query from scratch. In Combine, you have merge and append, right? I'll explain this a little later. And if you want to open Power Query Editor directly, you can just click on this button, Open Power Query Editor. Okay. What do we want? We want to click on File and then select From Folder. It asks us for the folder path. I'm just going to paste the path here. Now, the first thing that Power Query will do is to tell me how many files are there in that folder. Now, theoretically, it can even work with 400 files, right? It tells me all the files in that folder. What I want is to combine them. So we click on Combine and Transform, which means I want to combine the 4 files and also check whether it has been combined properly or not. If not, then I'll make a few tweaks here and there. So we click on the first option called Combine and Transform. Now it confirms with me which sheet do we want to pick up. So we want to pick up sheet. There's only one sheet called Sheet. Now remember that when you make a table in your Excel, it will give you 2 options. It will ask you, do you want to select the table or do you want to select the sheet? Now, if your sheet doesn't have unnecessary blank rows and columns in it, it doesn't matter. You can select either the sheet or the table, but it depends. If you have a table, then you have to make sure that the table is there on every single sheet and the table name is also the same. For now, I'm going to select the sheet because that is what you will use more commonly. It is very rare that you will get Excel files with tables in them, because whenever you get a system dump from a ERP or a CRM, you will never get a table. You will always get a raw file without a table in it. So I select the sheet and I press OK. And guess what? That is it. That's all you need to do. You define the folder path, you said Combine, you selected the sheet, and what it has done is, now it has opened Power Query Editor, and if you notice in the first column, 4, 1, 3, 2, it has combined the 8 rows from all the 4 workbooks into a single data set like this. Right? Any questions, anyone? We'll go step by step. I'll keep on asking you if you have any questions in the moment. Do we need to clean the data beforehand? See, it depends, Arun. So it depends on what amount of uncleanliness is there in the data. Like if you said in 3 workbooks, the data started on column B and in 1 is started on column A, then of course you will have to clean it. Can you still do it on Power Query? Sure. But then the choice is yours. Do you want to tackle that uncleanliness and garbage data on Power Query, or do you want to do it on Excel? Now, ideally, Power Query will always expect that the data is already clean. When I say clean, it means that some hygiene, some uniformity should be there. It shouldn't happen, like I said, it shouldn't happen that the sheet name is different and the column name is different and all of that. Vidya, that's Nothing else. We just selected the folder, we clicked on OK, and we clicked on combine and transform. That's all. I'll do it once again. Wait. If you change the source data, obviously, Ayush, it is going to get refreshed. So everybody watch this. I have 4 workbooks with me. If I go back to my folder and I add a 5th workbook right in front of you. Oh, wait a second. I did it in the wrong folder. If I add workbook number 5, and if I come back and I say refresh in the top left corner, you notice instantaneously workbook number 5 also gets refreshed like this. Yeah, so if you have different columns, then all the 3 columns will get picked up. And then the workbook that has an additional column will have the value, and the ones that don't have the column will show a null value. See, even though that is not correct, I hope you get it right. You can't say what if 2 workbooks have 2 columns and the third one has a third column. If the other workbooks don't have a third column, as in don't have values, you should have written the column heading with a null below it. You can't just say that because the value wasn't there, I left the column completely. That is what I'm saying. This is hygiene that anybody who works in MIS would always have followed. A good guy in IT handling data would always have followed these guidelines. The problem with Excel is that Excel never taught us these guidelines. In Excel, we said, let's just get the job done. Let's not worry about making it uniform and making sure everything starts at the right place and all of that. We just did whatever we wanted to do, right? But now is where people will start to realize that no, it's important to keep our data in the right order. Just to give you an example, let me first close this, close and load. So when you close and load, the data gets back to Excel. And this is a dynamic connection. That means that if I open any of the workbooks and I make a change, for example, if I go to 1 and I make a small change, so let's say I'm changing this number to 90, you notice the moment we right click and refresh, the number will become 90. Okay. This means that this data set that you see is a live connection to that folder. So whenever something updates in that folder, you can simply right click and refresh, just like you refresh your pivot table. If you right click and say, I want to go to table and then unlink from data source, then the link will go away. But right now it is linked to that data source, which in our case is the entire folder. Right? Okay, so just a quick recap. We went to data, we selected get data, from file, from folder. In from folder, we simply copied the folder path that we had. Press OK, and then we selected combine and transform. And once we did that, we selected the sheet that we want. Remember, the sheet name has to match across all the workbooks. And then we press OK. That's it. Now, do remember that once Power Query is open, you will not be able to access the Excel file. For example, if I right click and say table and edit query, it will open Power Query editor for me. But as long as Power Query editor is open on your system, you will not be able to press Alt Tab and go back to any Excel file, not just the Excel on which the Power Query is open, but you will not be able to switch back and forth between an Excel file and Power Query. This is a big limitation, and we have requested Microsoft to fix this, but so far they haven't done anything about it. It is possible that in the future, it allows you to do both concurrently, but at the moment, as long as the Power Query window is open, you will not be able to access the Excel file. There is a workaround. So you can go to your run command, okay? And in the run command, you can say excel.exe/x, right? Okay, that doesn't work. One second. Let me see if I can do it directly. Okay, you can actually open it directly. You don't have to do it from the run command. You can simply say, as in from the command prompt, you simply do it from the run command. You say excel.exe or /x. There's a space before the slash. What it does is, it opens Excel as a new instance, right? I will not be able to explain this in detail. You can check what a new instance is. Basically, when you open Excel as a new instance, it's a parallel Excel being open. So now you can see Power Query and Excel open at the same time. This is the only way to do this, all right? Let me just show you how this works. So if you say excel.ac/x, right? This is how you open a new instance of Excel. So if you want to run separate instances, there are several reasons for this. When you run a separate instance, the bandwidth utilization is lesser because if you open an Excel file, then all the Excels are open in the VB window because they're all a part of an application object. But if you open it as a different instance, then it's separate. These are very advanced topics, but this is how you do it. If you want to read more about this, you can always go ahead and do that. Right? I'll just write this in the Excel I created for you. Let me close this. So a new Excel instance is excel.ac/x, all right? Excellent. If you notice, there are many different examples that I have. For example, I have, what do you do when the columns are mismatching? What do you do when there are multiple sheets? What do you do when there are mismatching sheets? So the sheet name is not the same, but they're in different workbooks. What do you do when there are multiple workbooks and multiple sheets, right? Of course, when the problem is tougher, then the solution is also longer and more complicated, right? But this is what you will be doing 90% of the time. And I would always recommend that if your data is not clean, for example, you say that, what if the sheets don't have the same name? Every workbook has a different sheet name. I would suggest please go and change the sheet name, because if you have different sheet names, then doing it on Power Query will become quite complicated, right? Because you will have to go to the query and write a query yourself. Can it be done? Of course it can be done. So I'm telling you that these things can be done, but I would not recommend it, at least not at this stage. I've been working on Power Query for 2 years, and now I'm at a position where I feel comfortable doing all these things. This is all something that I've done in the last month, right? So my suggestion is, if the data is not clean and the client tells you, I'm sorry, my data is not clean and all the sheet names are different, you tell them, I'm sorry, but I can't do this on Power Query. This is the minimum level of cleanliness that I require. It's not too much to ask for. If the client says, I'm sorry, this is the unclean data, and you say, okay, I'll fix it, then it's a problem, because you're admitting to their mistake. Not having the same sheet name is the client problem. It is not your problem. Your job as an analyst is not to work as a, with no disrespect, as a KPO operator whose job is to clean data the entire time. Your job as an analyst is to come up with the analysis, prepare the model, do the scenario planning, come up with insights, okay? After doing an MBA, you're not supposed to go back and clean the data, even though it's a different matter that 80% of your time you'll be cleaning data for the client. That's what the entire world does. That's what I also do. It sounds very fancy when I say I create dashboards for clients and I help them. The truth is, even the CFO of a company half the time is sitting and handling unclean data files, okay? That's just the nature of business, right? Because Excel is, that's how businesses work. My point is, yes, it can be done if you have mismatching names and workbooks and all of that, but it is always recommended, if you do have that problem, fix it manually before you combine it in a Power Query, right? Okay, so we did a very simple example. Let's do a few more. The next one I want to take is, we do a fun one, okay? We do column from examples. So think of this as a natural successor to Flashfill. Now, if you remember, Flashfill was great. It gave us a result in a jiffy, but Flashfill never gave us a formula. And the other problem is that Flashfill was not dynamic. So if you remember, Flashfill did not update when we added more records. Remember, we had to go and press Control E once again. So let's take an example. If you notice here, we have the same data that we had yesterday. We have an email, a department, and a score. And what we want to do is, to separate the name and the department and the score. All right, let's do this. So I'll go to data, And watch carefully, we will select from table oblique range. Now it's very important. If you read the first paragraph, it says that if you want to create a new query linked to the Excel file, it has to be in the form of an Excel table. You cannot just write data like this, okay? Because if you write data like this and you say from table oblique range, it will force you to make it into a table. Power Query only works with structured data sets. Power Query will not work if you just give it any data set on Excel. It will force you to make it into a table. That's why you notice I've already converted my data into a table. This part is not optional. You will have to do this. You say from table oblique range. It will send the data to Power Query. And let's see what we want to do now. We have the data set. We want to separate the name, remember? So I'll click on add column and we will select column from examples. You notice the naming is different, but the shortcut is the same. It's Control E. The big difference is that when you do column from examples on Power Query, it actually shows you what is the expected result before you confirm. And it also shows you what is the formula that I wrote. In Excel, the challenge is that you get the result, but you're not sure about the result because it doesn't give you a preview of the result. You press Control E, you either get the result or you get a bad result. Also, you don't learn anything because it doesn't tell you how it did it. It just does it. But when I click on column from examples, you will notice that when I say HR, did you see what it does? Before I press OK, it is telling me, Havish, are you sure this is the result that you want? HR, Fin and Fin. And this gives me an opportunity to say and check and say, yes, this is what I want. And I want to press OK. In Flashfill, what would have happened? It would have given you the result without giving you an opportunity to accept or reject it. The other advantage is that it actually tells you the formula that you have written. So it says text dot between delimiters. Data is the column that we're choosing. And it is saying that between which delimiter, the comma and the comma. Now, these are not Excel functions, like I said earlier. So don't compare them to Excel formulas because Excel doesn't have functions like this to get you the data between different delimiters. Power Query has its own set of functions and methods. You can even create your own functions on Power Query, and they can be very, very powerful. So when we press OK, you notice that we get the result like this. On the right side, there is an applied step, which is telling me that this is what you did. So what is the first step? We selected the data from the source, which is from my current workbook. What did we take? We took the table called table number 2 and we took the entire content. Okay. What is the second step? It says that we changed the data type. That means the first column, which is the only column we have, has been changed to a text type. You notice that when the data was selected from the source, it was a ABC 1 to 3. That means it was either a text or a number. The data type was undefined. Now, how did Power Query change the data type? I did not do it. This is something which is an auto step. Power Query will automatically change the data type because it detects the data type. So it knows what is the date, what is the number, what is the string, what is the whole number, what is the percentage. If it is not able to detect it properly, you can always go and change it manually as well, right? And the third step says we inserted a text between delimiter. In the formula bar, you can see the entire formula. If you click on the gear icon, you can see the formula that has been written, or rather the option that has been selected. So we have selected a text between delimiters, and what is the starting delimiter, a comma, and the end delimiter, a comma. Makes sense, right? So this means between this comma and this comma, what was the text? That is what I selected. Isn't it smart? Like, this would have been so cool if this feature was there in Excel as well. But now you do, even though it's not an Excel function, it is there on Power Query, right? Now there are 3 steps. If you want to see all the 3 steps together in one location, then you can click on Advanced Editor in the top left corner. And like a program, it will show you all the steps like this in one single location. So what does it say? It says the first step was we selected the source data, which is from my Excel current workbook. This is the table name, and we selected the entire content. Then, for example, you would know, right? So those of you who have worked in JavaScript, you'll put a semicolon. Similarly, here you put a comma to say that this is one line of code and you're starting the second line of code here. What is change type? It is just a name that I give it to the step. I could have written anything that I wanted. Then I used a function called table.transform column types. What is the previous step? It is the source step, which is what you can see here. And what did I do? I converted my data column into a type which is text. And in the final step, I'm calling the step inserted text between delimiter. Remember, this is just a name. You can give any name you want. What is it that we're writing? We're saying we are adding a column. That is a function that we are using. The previous step is change type, and we are saying text between delimiters. And then each text dot between delimiters, the data column between a comma and another comma, and the resultant output will come in a text type. And then you have an in, which means that this is the final result that you're showing to the user. So the let means that these are the steps that we are performing one after the other in a sequence. And this means that this is the final result that is being shown to the user. Any questions, anyone? um, so I'll answer your first question, Vivek. So if you share the file, will the data be there in the data model? Since the folder structure has changed, yes, the data will be there. Like if I send you my file right now, the previous one, not this one, of course you will see the data, right? But if you refresh it, it will not work. So you will have to click on data source settings and you will have to change the path of that folder. That is clear, right? Okay, the next question was, mentioned VBA. Can we record VBA for a transformation in Power Query? No, no, absolutely not. VBA has nothing to do with Power Query, right? You can use VBA to run Power Query, which means if you want to refresh Power Query, then you can use VBA to say that I want to refresh my workbook automatically. So the Power Query will get refreshed automatically. But anything that is happening in Power Query, see these functions, the language has nothing at all to do with Visual Basic. If you have the data in abc.com HR corporate in 3.9, I mean, are you referring to, I don't follow. Are you saying that one record is like this, or are you saying the entire data set is like this? Yeah, it doesn't matter how many commas are there. I've just given you a simple example. Power Query will be able to fix your data no matter how many commas are there. But every record has to have the same pattern. Like it can't happen that in 5 records, the email is at the beginning and in another 5 records, the email is at the end. Then it will not work. You can have as many commas as you want. It doesn't matter. Let me show you some more examples so that you see the power of Power Query. Add column from examples. Please watch. If I write James Smith, you notice that it doesn't give you any result. If I write Peter Johnson, actually this will not work with this data set because it's a very small data set. Yeah, let me not do this one. Let me show you a different one. We'll do this with a larger data set. With 4, there is really nothing to learn. Let me give you a different example. Let's say we wanted to, you know what, let me select a larger data set so that this is not a good example for you guys. Wait, give me a second. Superstore. You want to see a complicated problem? I'll show you a complicated problem. Look at this. What do we have here? We have 3 letters followed by 2 letters followed by a number, which is an 8-digit number. Let me answer your questions first. Hold on to your questions. Let me show it to you with this one, because here we'll be able to do more things. I want to show all of you how powerful Power Query is, okay? I will select column from examples. Now, obviously, if I select the first 3 letters OFF, you notice it is a simple function called text before delimiter. What is a delimiter? It is a dash. So any text that is before the dash gives me OFF. Make sense? Okay. Now let's say we are doing something different. If I write PA, then it knows that I want to take the text between delimiters, which means it is taking between the first and the second one. What if I take the entire text OFFPA, OFFPA? Then it says text dot before delimiter, and it is looking at the only the second delimiter now. So it knows that we only want the text after the delimiter to be removed, the numbers, and everything before should come. But what if you wanted the result without the dash? That means I wanted the result to be not OFF-PA, but OFF-PA. Now this time, Power Query is getting confused. Power Query says, I don't know what you want. If you wanted everything, you should have written OFF-PA, but you're writing OFF-PA. This is where the simple machine learning of Power Query comes into play, which means you give it a test data and it learns from it. When I say OFFPA LA once again, do you notice what it did? Now it is able to understand that we wanted to remove, please watch, this is very important. This is a different function. We're not using before delimiters now. It is saying we are using something called text.remove. What are we removing? We are removing all the dashes and we are removing all the numbers between 0 and 9. Any questions on this? You don't have this on Excel, okay? So Excel doesn't have a function which allows you to choose what you want to remove. We do have a substitute, but you can't say I want to remove everything from 0 to 9. You will have to write 9 different substitutes if you want to remove all numbers. The advantage of doing this in Power Query is that you can simply write 0.9 and it understands that you want to remove everything between 0 and 9, like a range. And I hope all of you will understand. If I change it to A and Z, what do you think will happen when I press enter? Now the opposite will happen. It is removing all the text characters. It is only keeping the numbers with me. Do you see how powerful the tool is when it comes to data cleaning, right? So let me just change it back to 0 and 9 like this. What is inclusive or exclusive? It is inclusive. Inclusive. Inclusive of the start and the end character. Let's do something else, okay? I will remove this. And this time, let's do it once again. And I will say, please watch carefully, FFO. Basically, I'm reversing the text. I will come here and I'll write RUF. And did you see what it did, everyone? It is actually reversing the text for me. How cool is that? Again, Excel would have had a lot of difficulty doing this. That's the beauty of Power Query. For some, it's a very impractical example. Just in case you have a text and you want to, I don't know, change it because you want to hide the actual details from a person, it can actually understand such a complex problem. And what is it doing? If you look at the function that has been written, it has written this function. It is saying, let me zoom in. It is saying that from text.middle, you took the second character, then you took the first character, and then you took the starting character. And then you did a text.combine to add those 3 characters together. And this is how you reversed the result. Yes, it can. Flash fill, let me check. I think it should work. Let's give it a shot. FFO and Control E. No, let me give one more sample. Yeah, Flashfill also does the same thing. But please remember, how Flashfill is doing all this has nothing to do with the Power Query. Okay, or maybe it does. We don't know, because Flashfill is a black box. So we don't know how Flashfill works. Microsoft hasn't told us. It's been there for 10 years, 8 years, but we have no idea how it works. Excuse me. Any other questions? Any questions, anyone? Okay, let's work with some dates now. So I have dates here. Power Query is also very capable when it comes to working with dates. I'm sorry, I have to first send this to Power Query. The first thing that I want to do is to change the data type from a date time into a date, because I don't have a time value. So there's no point keeping the time value. I change it to a date format. Now watch. If you wanted to find what day is it, in Excel, you will have to write a formula. In Power Query, you can do it in two ways. You can go to add column and then select date. And then you can extract whatever you want. For example, if I say the day and the name of day in one click, it will tell me what day it is. And what is the formula that has been written? The function is date dot day of week name. That is the inbuilt function that is available on Power Query, right? If you wanted to know something else, let's say the quarter of the year, right? Again, in Excel, you will have had to write a formula, but here it will tell you that this is the quarter. So this is the first quarter, second, third, fourth. And what is the function? Date dot quarter of year, like this. All right. But you can also do this with column from examples. So I'll just select and remove this. If we say column from examples, and if I write, please watch. Now, I don't know what day is 26 March, right? So I can just write SU, I can just write S, anything, any letter you can write. And these are all the results that Power Query is telling you that it is capable of finding out, right? So it is saying, Havish, what do you want to find? Do you want to find the week of year, the week number? Do you want to find the starting of the year, the quarter, the month, the day? What is the day number in that year? Do you want to find the age in days, right? And like this, there are different examples that you have. What do we want? We want to find the day. So I select the day, and it automatically tells me date dot day of week name. When I press OK, that is the answer that is given to me. Also remember that in Power Query, when you perform a function and you delete it, for example, we found the quarter and the day and then we deleted it. Remember, we removed the column. All those steps are being saved. So unlike Excel, when you add a column and you delete it, it doesn't remember that you had added a column. Power Query is going to remember every action that you performed. So if you add and follow that with a delete, it will remember that you added and deleted. Okay, it will not cancel the previous step. For example, when I added a day and I added a quarter and I removed the day and quarter, it doesn't cancel the step. It actually remembers all the three steps. But if you want to remove it, then you can just select and then say delete. In the next one, you say delete. And in the final one, you say delete. Like this. But Power Query will not cancel a step. It will always add another step. Right? Any questions, anyone so far? No, there is no limit on the number of actions that can be kept in memory. Power Query also has something called query folding. Again, an advanced topic. You can read about this in more detail. Somebody who has been working on queries earlier would know what query folding is, but it's wonderful to see that even Power Query has query folding. Okay, so query folding basically means that if there are multiple steps that you have performed, and there is the ability to fold, compress, combine everything into a single query, it will automatically do it. Right? Which means that it will not unnecessarily create additional queries. If it has the capability of reducing the number of queries, it does that automatically. Right? I'll just put it on the file. So 1 second. Right. Anything else? No. Once you have removed the step, there'll be no way to bring it back. So you have to be very careful about that. No limit on the number of rows. You can, there is no theoretical limit on the data set that you can pick up. So if you say Power Query data limit, did you see this? 50 million records. Works beautifully. 50 million is 5 crore, which is a lot, okay? And it works. It works without any problem. Of course, there are a lot of other factors. See, the ability of a system to handle data is never literally the rows of data, the records. Of course, that's a factor too. There are a lot of other factors that come into play. How is the model created? How efficient is the model? Do you have duplicated records or not? A lot of things that come into play. And there are ways in which you can reduce the efficiency of Power Query model. So there's a guy called Reza Rad, who's a Microsoft regional manager. He runs a website called Radacat, and he talks a lot about how to improve the Power Query model. So improve Power Query performance. See, this is an entire, like I said, a lot of people say, oh, Excel doesn't require me to learn, information technology and relational databases and SQL and all of that. But the truth is that if you want to work in Excel, looking at the next 5 years, you will unfortunately have to do all this. There's no choice. Learn to like it, because these are exactly the sort of questions that will be asked from you. So there are ways in which you can improve the efficiency and the system utilization of your model, right? I mean, since you asked me, I'm telling you, but theoretically there is no limit, and you can access as many. I mean, 5 crore is a very large, humongous data set. It's very seldom that you'll be working with 5 crore records at one point of time. If at all, you'll be working on an extract. And if you say, no, I'm working with 100 crore records, then obviously, then you're not going to use these tools. Then you're going to use some big data platform. You use Hadoop or something like that, right? Then in any case, Power Query is not the right tool. Yeah, we'll go with joins in a bit. All the good question, Vindhya. So all the actions that we perform on the data in Power Query are saved in the Excel file itself, right? So it's all saved within the Excel file. The Excel file is still an Excel SX file, so there's nothing different about the file. it will work like a regular Excel file. The VBA code will work, Power Pivot will work, and the query is saved within the Excel file. See, uh, every Excel file is a zip file, right? So, for example, if you have an Excel file, I'm just going to give you an example. If I, how should I show it to you? 1 second. There's an Excel file. If I say that I can show the file name extensions, this is Excel SX. So if I say I'm changing it to .zip, right? And I then extract everything. An Excel file is nothing but a zip file, which means that it comprises of multiple different elements in it. So there are relationships, there are XML content in it, right? And this allows you to access the data within an Excel file. For example, if I look at styles and I will open it, why do I not have my, strange, 1 second. It is my Notepad++, okay. So you can see that this is what all is stored. These are the schemas that are there in a Excel file, right? So these are certain formats and schemas that are there. So what happens is that when you save a Power Query or a Power Pivot relation, what happens? Where is that? It's a good question. What is happening? Where is it getting stored? Because people say, I can't see it. You can't see it because it's still there in the Excel, because an Excel is nothing but a zip file, which constitutes of a number of files in it, right? Like this. So like this is the worksheet. So this is my sheet number 1. And if I open my sheet number 1, you can see that all the data that I have on sheet number 1 can actually be accessed as an XML like this. This is how other systems can also read Excel files. For example, how can Python read an Excel file? Python can read an Excel file because an Excel file is nothing but data like this, right? So this is the problem. A lot of people say, no, Excel is not programming. Excel doesn't require me to learn XML and other things, but you have to. At the end of the day, if you want to work with Excel at an advanced level, then you have to, I'm not saying be an expert, but at least be aware of what these things are, all right? Like, see, nobody in your life is going to tell you, change the extension of an Excel file and unzip it. But see, you have to be curious by nature. You have to say, let me give it a shot and let me do something different. I mean, that's where the theoretical learning is very important in Excel. People focus too much on the actual practice, but you can only practice when you know all the tools, when you know the theory, when you know what Excel is capable of. If you don't even know what Excel is capable of and what it is not capable of, how will you learn, right? So picking up a book and reading it is probably the first thing you should do before you, for that matter, even attend a training. Because if you had picked up a book, then you would have had 100 more questions to ask me. Your questions are good. All I'm saying is, I hope being with me for a day and a half, now you know how much more there is to Excel than meets the eye. And we haven't even started with VBA and TypeScript now. Imagine what all more is there that Excel has to offer, right? Good. Anything else, anyone? All okay, everyone? Excellent. The next question was about joins. So I'll quickly cover that before I do other things. Just give me a moment. I'll just clean up my desktop. A lot of things are open. Okay. So I wanted to show you how you can create a relationship. Remember, we did this in Power Pivot yesterday, but there is a different way of handling this problem. Let's see this. I have a sales data. Let me just show you what the data looks like. It is sales for a company for 1 year, 2016, right? Everyone, nothing special here. But you notice that I only have the customer ID. I do not have the customer name. Why? Because the customer name is mentioned in another file, which is a dimension file. And what does it tell me? It tells me the customer name and ID are mapped like this. So tell me, does it make more sense to keep the customer ID and name mapping in a separate file, or should it all have been in the sales data? Basically, my question is, should the customer name have been in the sales data, or should it be there in a separate file? What are your thoughts on this? It should not be in the same file. I'll give you a hint. It should be separate. Absolutely. What is the reason, Janvi? Why should it be separate?
For privacy.
Okay. I mean, agreed. Privacy is important, but there's something more. No. Now you guys are just thinking you're putting everything on the wall. Don't do that. There's a reason. But dimension. I'm sorry. Okay. The reason a dimension should always be kept on a different file is because you want to avoid you want to avoid redundancy. If in all the sales data sets, I put the customer name as well, what is the point? When I know that I have the customer ID at any point, if I want to find out who the customer was, I can always look up from this file. Also, customer IDs might get remapped. For example, maybe Darren Paz was my customer, but he left the company and a new person came. If you had to make this change in all of the 15 files that you had, it would have been very difficult. What is the advantage of keeping all the ID and name in one file? You have to make the change in a single file. The key word here is redundancy. You do not want to put the customer name in every file because you are needlessly making it redundant. Sometimes, in fact, most of the time, you do not want all the data in one file. You want the data to be in different files. This is what we call the star schema. Okay. So whenever you're creating a relationship, you should always follow what we call a star schema. A star schema says that, sure, it's a normalized data set. Wait a second. It's not a normalized data set. Normalization, that's why I checked once again. Data normalization is something else. Anyway, we can probably discuss this offline, Vivek, right? So a star schema basically says that your sales data, that means your fact table, your transactional table should be in the center. And what are all these? These are the dimensions. For example, employee ID, customer ID, region ID, anything which is something that is not changing. It is descriptive data. For example, all of you, I'm sure, have a student ID. In every single Excel file that is generated for your attendance and for your placements and for your guest lectures and for various other things, does every single Excel file have your ID and your name both? If it does, it's completely pointless. It is redundancy. Why do you unnecessarily want to write the name in every single file when you already have the ID with you? Because if you have the ID and there is one master file which has all the student IDs and all the names, then at any point, if you want to find out who does 10012 belong to, you can always search for it from the dimension file, right? That is why you follow a star schema, which means that you keep the transaction data in the center and you keep the dimensions around it, okay? So if you notice here, all my data is here: country ID, city ID, employee ID, product ID, quantity, and sales. But I'm not keeping my city description, country description, product name, and first name in the fact table, because why would I want to? When all of those things are dimensions, I would keep it in separate files so that if tomorrow anything changes to my dimension, I don't have to go and change it in the fact table, right? I've just given you the one-line explanation. You can see this in more detail. So let's do this problem. I want to open an Excel file first. The first thing I want to do is to connect to my, connect to my 16 data set, okay? So I'll copy the folder path. We will come to my blank Excel and I will say data get data from file and from workbook, because we want to connect to a single workbook. Where is my workbook? My workbook is here, 2016. Import. I select the sheet. Now, this time I will not click on transform because I don't want to make any changes. I simply want to load the data on my Excel. So we click on load. So you notice the data gets loaded. I'll do the same thing once again. Data, get data from file, from workbook. And this time we select our customer name and ID mapping file. Okay. Now here you notice that when I select the sheet, there is a small change that I need to make. If you notice, my column heading is not getting picked up properly. This is a very common. Okay, I'm not sure why my annotation tool is not working. Just give me a second. Okay, it refuses to work. Nevertheless, if you notice, it says column 1 and column 2, a very common problem. Power Query is not able to understand that customer ID and customer name, the two headings, are actually the heading and they're not a part of the data. So we want to click on transform data. And what do we want? We want to make sure that the first row, which is customer ID and customer name, actually becomes the header. How do we do this? We click on first row as headers. And in a single click, you notice that a step is created called promoted headers. What is the function? It is called table.promote headers. And what does it do? It automatically makes my first row as the header. I will click on close and load. So we have done something. We have taken both the data sets and we have created a connection. Great. Now we want to combine both of them. So we will go back to Power Query, which is get data, and then launch Power Query editor. Now I want to create a table which has both these data sets in it. So I'll click on sheet number 1 and we will say home and then merge query, right? Merge is like a VLOOKUP. So this is my first table, which is my sales table, and my second table is my customer ID and customer name table. How do we combine both the data sets into a master data set? We simply have to select customer ID and select customer ID. And if you notice, it says that the selection is matching. I don't know why that one row is not getting picked up. Probably I picked up a blank row. That's okay. So it is matching every single customer ID from here, right? This is how you do a match. You have different types of joins available. So you have left outer, which is a VLOOKUP. Then you have a right outer, full outer, inner, left, and right anti. I'm not going to cover the others. You can look at them independently. 99 out of 100 times, you will all be using a left outer join. I press OK. Now, what happens when we do a join is that it doesn't bring me the column that I wanted from the second table, right? We only wanted the customer name. What it did was it said, I will give you the entire table. So it brought the entire table number 1, 2. But I don't need the table. I just need one column. So we can click on the expand button and we say, you know what? I don't need the ID because I already have the ID with me. I just need the customer name. I press OK and you notice we get the customer name like this. We can just rename this. I can call this customer name, and then we want to shift it. So I just shift it towards the left. Next to my customer ID, we click on close and load. And this time you notice we get a third query on our Excel file, which will only have what happened. Okay, I have no idea what happened. Wait, let me. Sheet 1, we have reordered columns, close and load. And for some reason, it is refusing to come back. Okay, that's the most peculiar thing ever. Let me just try refreshing once. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I did not create a new query. My mistake. I added it to the first data set, right? So you notice this time, the customer name will get added here, right? That's it. Very simple. And of course, if any change happens to either of those two files in the source folder, the same change will get reflected here as well instantaneously, right? So if let's say 16555 becomes a different name, then you simply have to right click and refresh, and the same change will happen here as well. Okay. Any questions on this? So we connected our Excel to two different Excel files. We put both the Excel files in Power Query, and then what we did was we uh, did a merge so that the entire second table is added to the first table. How? By using the key. The key is what? The customer ID, which is there in both the tables, and then you select the column that you want. Okay. All good? All right. Let's do one more example. This is how you get data from the internet. So let's say I want to go to moneycontrol.com. I can copy the URL. We can come back to Excel, click on data, and then from web. Here you can put the URL that you want, press OK. Now this might take a little bit of time, 10 to 50, 60 seconds, depending on how large and how complex the website is and how much content is there. I want to select the first table, and it shows me the entire table like this, right? You notice the column headings are not coming properly. That's okay, we can do that. So I click on transform data. I want to change this to my, let's say my index. This is my, let's say, I don't know what value it is. Let's say this is the close value. This is the change. We don't need the last column, which is the percentage change. So I'll just remove it for now. We'll go back, close and load. And what will happen is that the cleaned data will come back to Excel. Now, of course, when market reopens tomorrow, you can right click and refresh, and the data will get refreshed. But there is something even better than that. I can click on query and then properties, and I can set it to automatic refresh, which means that it will get refreshed every minute automatically. Very cool, right? Any questions on this? All okay. Now, will it work with every website? Obviously not. It depends on what type of website it is. It works with things like Wikipedia, WHO data, things like that. Of course, it won't work with things like Bloomberg because they will have protected their website. You can just copy and paste. You can just query the data like this. But it's still handy. I've seen, I found this very useful. There have been numerous instances where I've had the need of getting some data from the internet directly like this. Excellent. What else can I show you? Okay, let's also look at this. Now, I have a financial statement for Apple, and I've taken it from their website. Now, the problem is I'm only interested in, let's say, this area, the liability and shareholders' equity. So I want to find out this part. Now, of course, if you try to copy and paste it in an Excel file, it will not come properly. You will say, oh, can we try to go to text to column and try to clean it up? You can try, but there really would be, no perfect way of getting the results in the order that you want, right? So for example, what are you going to keep as a delimiter? You can only keep a space as the delimiter, and that doesn't work properly because these line items will also get broken down. So we don't want to do any of this. What I want is to click on get data from file from PDF. And what will happen now is I can just select my folder. We can select our PDF. Now, even though you can't copy and paste data from a PDF perfectly, even if it's not a scanned PDF, even if it's a PDF in the form of selectable data, but when you load it using Power Query, it shows you the tables that are there. And what do we want? We want our liabilities, right? Which would be we can select anything, it doesn't matter, but I'm trying to search for the same one. What was it that we had? We had current liabilities, right? Accounts payable. This one, right? So of course it's not 100%. For example, the heading current liability has not been picked up, but that's okay. At least everything else is there. I click on transform data. And just a little bit of cleaning is required. I don't need this column, so we can remove it, which is null. I can also remove this one. Let's say this is data for 2018, and this is for actually whatever 2018 and 17. Just an example. We can call this our current liabilities, and that's it. You get your clean data. This should not be there, the heading, so we can just deselect the null so that we get all the results like this, right? Amazingly helpful. I mean, I can't tell you how many companies need to get data from PDF, and they will either do it manually, or if they're lucky, they have some guy who's a genius at VBA, and that guy will be able to write a very complex code that will give you the result. And what will happen? The next one, the PDF will have a different format, and the VBA code will not work. Or the person who wrote the code will leave the company, and the person who has to run the code the next time, he will not know how to run it, or he will not be able to modify it, or it will be password protected. The reason VBA will never die is because organizations around the world, especially in finance, depend on VBA for their automation work. It's very nice to say, no, robotic process automation will take over and we don't need VBA. If today you tell a big four company that, or even a consulting firm for that matter, that we are not going to use VBA, or VBA is going to be discontinued by Excel, by Microsoft, the company will crash tomorrow. No exaggeration. There is just so much work that happens on Visual Basic codes that were written 8-10 years back by some guy, and they keep on running their automations on it. I'm not saying that work cannot happen without it. All I'm saying is that they will go back 2 years in terms of their efficiency if VBA codes do not work. So VBA will never die, just like C can never die. It might be a legacy language. There are better languages that have come up, but it still works. It is still used, right? Even a language like COBOL is not died because some companies still work on it. A lot of government firms still work on it. So VBA will never die. But having Power Query, let's talk about the future now. Having Power Query makes you rethink. This makes you realize that, oh, it's much faster. It's much simpler. It is easier for a regular Excel user to learn. The learning curve is much flatter than the learning curve for learning a programming language. Is it difficult? A little bit, but not as much as learning a programming language, right? And that's where all kudos to Microsoft for coming up with something like this. Any questions, anyone? There is one more example I want to cover on Power Query, but when we return from the break, then I will cover it. I want you to have a fresh mind when we do it. And it will take a little bit of time, 10-15 minutes. So I don't want to do it right now. But using all that we have learned so far, I have a problem for you. This is a problem that I cover at EY trainings, so which will be a good problem. a practical real life problem that I want to share with you, and we'll see how to come up with the final. We'll do 2 examples, and then in the last session, we'll focus on Visual Basic. Anything you would like to ask? Asha, we can break for lunch then?
Yes, sir. You can join back at 2.
Excellent. So we'll start at 2 o'clock. All right.
Yes, same
the
link.
session, yeah, the link will be the same. I'm closing the session for now, but you can click on the same link once again. Let me just answer these 2 comments that have come. Power Query is available only in 365. No, Power Query is available in 2016 and 19 as well. Yeah, it's available in 16 and 19 as well. Okay? And Power Query is also there on Power BI. So the exact same thing that I'm showing you right now will also work in Power BI. So the good thing is that you're basically hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. So you're not just learning something on Excel today, you're also learning a very important element of Power BI. For the Mac, I don't know, I'll have to check. Power Query for the Mac. First impressions. You know, when somebody says first impression, that doesn't sound too promising, but let's see. Anyway, I think it's better than nothing. I'm sorry, the website is not loading. Are they? Okay, it's loading now. Oh, Power Query can run up to 600% faster on Excel for Mac. Okay, wait a second, let me check. Yeah, so it's there. It's there. But I think it should only be there for the latest version of Excel for Mac. So 365 for Mac. I have a feeling it will not be there in 16. I don't think there was a 19 for Mac. You'll have to check. I mean, you can also Google it and see. But it's there, definitely. Right? Wonderful. So see you in 30 minutes.